let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Hand of the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
All right, everybody, welcome in. It's good to have you. As promised, I want to welcome a familiar face and a familiar voice to you. If you are involved in any way, shape, or form in Northeast Ohio, maybe all of Ohio politics, Jonathan Broadbent is a heavy hitter. He is the founder and the chief executive, if you will, of Unwoke Investing. He is also an extraordinarily important part of the media scene, as he is the co-host of The Voice of Geauga, which is a radio show, and he's going to tell us all about that because there's a big event that is coming up here that we have been invited to, we being me, and certainly would love to bring you along. So let's welcome Jonathan back into Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Jonathan, good day, sir. How are you?
Doing well, Bob. Thanks for having me back on.
Always a pleasure to have you back on. How is the radio show going? When we first launched that, it was about the same time that I was transitioning from the radio to this podcast space, to the live streaming thing that I do, and you guys do as well with Ohio political news and so forth. But the radio show with you and Skip Claypool, how's that going?
Well, it was actually the day after. So there was a lead up, and forgive me a second here. I'm going to preface this in a way that I think you'll appreciate. There was a time a long time ago when some political activist friends of mine who were conservative, who hold patriotic values, who believe in the America that I believe in, convinced me to get involved in something called Central Committee, which is a part of the Republican Party. And I've served for 4 years in that role as a local volunteer for the Republican Party. And it was all just because some friends of mine got together and we were talking about, like, hey, this looks broken. Maybe we should all actually roll up our sleeves and try to do some work to fix the thing, because America's going off the rails and we can't accept socialism, communism, Marxism, etc. In a very similar way, late last year, 2025, a bunch of similar people, actually one of them is common between the two, but a different group of patriots believing the same things, having the same values as me, said, you know, we're thinking about starting a radio show, and we like your voice. You have political acumen and some savvy. You know some people. At that point, I'd been on Ohio political news for, I want to say, pushing 3 years. And so they knew me from that and said, how would you like to be on radio? And of course, my mind starts reeling. I was like, well, I did not have that on my bingo card. I was not imagining, well, actually, I didn't imagine any of this, Ohio political news or any of the things that I find myself now fighting. But as we talked about it, and as they kind of rolled things out, this is a group of people very like-minded, very similar in thought process and beliefs to me. And they convinced me that I could do it. And I'd heard before, and from people like you, you've been very encouraging of me the various times I've been on your radio show and on air with you. Thank you again for that. But I really had no idea what I was doing. I put on the headset, or actually, I'm jumping ahead. In November of last year, we were putting things together, putting our ducks in a row for the radio show. And I learned that we were going to launch the show on December 2nd. And I will, just like watching catastrophe happen, we all remember where we were when disaster strikes. I remember where I was when I heard that Bob France was going to be taken off the air. And that was December 1st. To this day, I'm still livid. I'm still furious with the people who I believe I've figured out who are behind the scenes, yanking the rug pull on Bob France. But to me, it was conspicuously interesting that I find myself suddenly on the radio when in my book, the real conservative radio show host, Bob France, gets the rug pull. My first instinct was to reach out to you, Bob, and ask you, hey, do you want some airtime? You want to keep audience? And you graciously accepted. And you've been a guest on my show several times, which is completely, just seems like a role reversal. But thank you again for that. The radio show and podcast, and now we've got a newspaper. The newspaper goes out, its actual physical form. I think my office is a mess. At some point before we stop filming this, I'll find one and hold up. It's a thing of beauty. It's actually a 20-page physical newspaper that goes out full color to over 43,000 mailbox addresses in Geauga County. Yeah, 43,000. It's a labor of love, but the thing is, in my book, we have very few people out there willing to say the truth, to tell the truth to the people. And I found myself years ago just taking that role on County Central Committee, taking that role on Ohio Political News, and then agreeing with a group of people, Skip Claypool and others, to be that voice, to start telling we the people, hey, it's time to wake up. We've got Marxism headed our way, and we cannot let that happen. So let's roll up our sleeves. Let's pull out the magnifying glass, get the detectives involved, and let's figure out what's happening with our budgets, with our elected officials, what's happening within the Republican Party, you name it. Nothing's off limits if we're going to fix America and bring it back to our republic.
That's very well said, and thank you for the kind words too. And yeah, what you kind of colloquially refer to as having the rug pulled out from underneath me, I refer to as a prison shanking, because that's what it pretty much was.
Yeah.
But you're right, and I'm not surprised that you were approached with the idea of doing radio, because you do have a terrific voice, although it is much more than just about the sound. There's somebody once wrote about someone being full of sound and fury signifying nothing. You can sound and have the great pipes, which you most certainly do, but you got to have the content. And you most certainly have that in spades as well, which is why I used to have you on the radio program with me for so very long before everything kind of shifted over here to the online world. And I'm honored that you reached out to me to come on to the Voice of Geauga. And at the time, I was going to do my daily live stream from 9 until 11 each day. in which case I was planning to do Voice of Geauga with you and Skip earlier, in the morning when you guys were on, but then circumstances being what they are, I needed to do some other things because of the sudden career change that I had to do. So my hours had to be earlier from 7 until 9. Oh, it's unfortunate because it's about the same time that, you're doing your thing with the Voice of Geauga and, Ohio political news and so on and so forth. So it was unfortunate, but in a manner of speaking, I think it's actually for the better because, you and I collaborate a lot now. We communicate a lot now in a lot of different ways. We're in the same Signal group chats, strategy sessions and so forth with a lot of other conservatives. And I can come onto your program and you can come onto my program and Skip as well. And, and Brian and Joe and everybody from Ohio Political News, we're all kind of in one giant collab, even though we have different shows and different mediums, going from the radio side where Voice of Geauga is to what we're doing here online. But at the end of the day, I think it brought a whole lot of really good, strong voices and strategists together to work together that I think ultimately are going to pay off for Northeast Ohio, for Geauga County specifically in your case, but for Northeast Ohio and for Ohio bigger picture. I think sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, we don't know what God is planning, but he sure as heck does. And there's a reason why I think sometimes, we find ourselves where we do because bigger and better things lie in front of us. That's how.
Amen. Amen. All glory goes to God. God has us in these sorts of positions and lines these things up for a reason. And I find that God, of course, knows our skill set and our ability to push through sometimes agonizing and tough situations better than we do. So what's that expression? God won't give you anything you can't lift,
Yes.
you can't carry. So that ultimately is proven true. One of the things that I want to put into context for the Ohio listening audience, I was involved when Bob and I first met. I was involved with an organization called Protect Ohio Children.
Mm-hmm.
I actually still run the Facebook group, Protect Ohio Children North, and I still am an active volunteer. But at the time, I was serving as a board member, chair, and territory lead of Protect Ohio Children. And that got me involved in Parents Defending Education, and so No Left Turn in Education. We collaborated extensively across the nation with the Protect Child Health Coalition and lots of other states like Purple for Parents in Indiana. I mean, gosh, probably about 25 or more other states to varying degrees of interaction. Iowa, California, you name it. So there are parent advocacy groups all over the country that are fighting for a return to traditional education in K through 12. And I learned something about Ohio that was a little bit unexpected, and that is our ability, our interest, our network of collaboration. So I was doing traveling, I was sort of ping-ponging across Ohio into patriot groups, from Ohio freedom fighters to North Canton, We the People, you name it. I was going all over the state, actually down to Westchester, which is just outside of Cincinnati, speaking on this. And the really cool thing is that a lot of these leaders of these conservative organizations, we know each other and we collaborate. We're on text threads and private group chats and all those sorts of things. And I suggest that that's the answer. That's the solution to all these things that ail us. It can be easy to think that there's some politician or one group or a nonprofit or something that's going to come along and fix whatever, fighting back against censorship and regain our freedom of speech, for Second Amendment rights, our rights to defend ourselves. Whatever your issue is, it can be easy to get caught up in the idea that somebody else is going to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that that's what's going to fix it. What will fix it is big collaboration between a lot of us. So that brings me back to Bob's point. Sorry, it was a meandering way of saying you're spot on, Bob. Those signal groups that we're in, where we're collaborating and talking among group leaders of patriot organizations and people that are like-minded, That's how we win.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up how you first kind of came onto my radar was because of Protect Ohio Children. And the first time I saw you, or first maybe I think it was the very first time, but then I saw you multiple times in similar places, which is in front of school boards. You were going from district to district to district, fighting and advocating for the protection of Ohio children, quite literally, as the group says. But you were talking, of course, about the indoctrination, the sexualization, the really radical woke things that were being taught to young kids in schools. And you were talking to parents. I was blown away by your articulation. Again, I had known you. I mean, now it doesn't blow me away because you're just an extraordinary communicator. But the first time I was like, because a lot of times, we're watching. Those of us who have watched, the school board meetings, there's just a lot of angry parents who aren't necessarily able to word or articulate what they're trying to really say about protecting their kids as well. There's a lot of emotion. There's maybe not a lot of the right knowledge and the right verbiage. And then here you came, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this guy is on point every step of the way. And that's when I reached out to John Stover and said, can you put me in touch with Jonathan Broadbent? Because you were obviously working so closely with Ohio Value Voters and so forth. And but that's how it started. And since we're there, and I know you said you still run the Facebook group and so forth. How do you evaluate where we are now with the mission to protect our kids from these types of things in schools? Obviously, most of what you were doing is prior to 2024. Those it was during the Biden years and all of that really crazy stuff happening. So President Trump comes in, invokes some executive order type, policy as far as removing these things from schools. But obviously, there's no fail safe. There are still things that are going to happen. So give me your impression or your understanding of where we are now and how much of a fight there still is to fight to protect our kids in the schools.
Okay, so there are two parts to that answer. Unfortunately, Trump means well and is making some really good, bold moves that brings a lot of public awareness. But I don't believe that the needle has moved yet in K through 12. In government-run schools across the nation, it's virtually effectively the same as it was during the Biden years. It may be hidden, it may be a little less easy to see. Like you've got local school districts that as soon as we, the people, figured out that it was critical race theory, and they've been working on trying to divide kids and use identity politics to use critical race theory to make Black kids think that they're inferior and that they're subject and that they're oppressed, and use white guilt to make to create and sustain this narrative of and this is just one example of many issues within K through 12 education. But critical race theory, when we figured it out, the schools changed to calling it critical race DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so it took a little while. Everybody was like, well, what's that? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we were like, wait a minute, hold on, tap the brakes here again. All you've done is just change the name. They're like, well, no, it's Jedi now. Jedi. And so who doesn't think cool things when you hear Jedi? J-E-D-I. You think like Star Wars and stuff, and somebody's coming to somebody's rescue. Well, all that is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. They've been doing it for years, and they've continued. And the whole plan of the left, and all you have to do is look at any speech, virtually anything said by the union heads of the major teachers unions, or just look at your local school district. They haven't changed much of anything. They didn't really package everything up and mothball or completely eliminate these programs. They're trying to put them into a place of stasis, and they're trying to wait out Trump and bring it all roaring back to life. And in fact, there are plenty of schools.
Where are the parents, if I may interrupt that a little bit, because I see what you're saying, and you're right every step of the way. But again, when you were kind of going to these board, are the school board meetings still being challenged by parents the way you once did? Because why did we stop? Is it because, well, you Trump won, so therefore it's all being taken care of? Do people not understand? Because I feel like if the government-run schools are still the same way, why isn't the pushback still the same?
Well, the pushback should still be the same, but it isn't. And I'll say that Well, first, I'm going to interject the note of not caution, the note of hope that I don't want to lose track of in the course of this conversation. Massive numbers of people, absolutely huge numbers of people, have left government-run schools. That's where the hope is. And by the way, you didn't ask it, but I'm going to interject one of the just beautiful golden nuggets of information about what's happening in schools. We've heard for years about systemic racism. Systemic racism is thrown around along with white supremacy and Nazism, whatever. There are all these clubs that the left use to try and beat up on anybody who is patriotic, and especially if you happen to be Caucasian. You can't possibly speak because systemic racism. I will proudly announce that I have found the systemic racism. People look everywhere. They want to try and see if they can figure it out in the banking. Are banks still redlining and not lending to black lenders? That's not the case. Is it credit cards? Is it busing routes? Where is the systemic racism? We've been asking for years. Well, I found it. I'm very happy to announce that I found the systemic racism. It's in government-run K through 12 education. Here's how I can point to it and show you the systemic racism in action in K through 12 education. And it stems from COVID. During COVID, there was a huge increase in the number of families that left government-run schools and went to better education elsewhere. Well, the testing continued, and here's what we find as a result. And the results are continuing to pile on, and I don't think government-run K through 12 education has any argument left. They've run out of gas. What we found is that the families that left government-run schools ended up with much better test results vis-a-vis smarter kids when they left the government schools. The white kids did better. Asian kids a little less, but still better when they left schools. Middle Eastern and Latino, significantly better. Black kids, young Black boys and girls who left the government-run schools, meteoric, astronomical difference within years. They skyrocketed up to on par with white. So remember that achievement gap we heard about forever? And there were all these nonsensical things that were thrown out like, well, maybe if we hire more Black teachers, because the teachers need to look like the kids so they can identify with them or whatever. Complete and utter hogwash. It turns out, as sanity would dictate, none of that matters. Kids, Black kids, Asian kids, Middle Eastern kids, Muslim, Jew, atheist, Christian, if you put them in front of a competent teacher interested in actually teaching a subject, they learn. It's an amazing thing. And outside of government-run schools, they learn at different rates, which tells me clearly, and you can see it in the statistics and you can see it in the numbers, inside of government-run schools, the Black kids are suppressed. They are antagonized into grief and anguish, and they are not properly taught. They're not properly taught because they're told that they're victims. That is an outrage, and more people should be aware of it. And more people should be tuning in to the results that are emanating. My way of looking at that is that's the golden nugget that came out of COVID. All the families that left. By the way, the latest statistics I heard, they're a couple of years old now, but I think the trend has continued. Black families left government-run schools at a faster rate than any other demographic. So that means in the future, if you want the business leaders, you want the chairman and CEOs, and you want the people who are actually intelligent and competent, based on that trend, look to the Black kids who left government-run schools and got proper education elsewhere, or actually any of them, because those are the kids who have received an actual education. They're less likely to be racially antagonized, gender antagonized, sexually confused, and all the things that are being pumped in these K through 12 environment.
Jonathan, where do we see these results you're talking about? You know, the meteoric rise and so on and so forth, because what you're talking about doesn't get enough noise because I didn't know about it. I mean, I knew about some of the government schools, obviously losing a significant number of students to some of the charter schools and the other things, but I didn't know about the results as far as over year, how much better these kids are doing. So where can people find that?
I'll send the link to you, Bob. Maybe you can put it in the show notes. I've got
Yeah.
one key link that's clearer than all the other ones, and I use the heck
Okay.
out of it. It
Okay.
was actually in I won't call it a direct head-to-head, but it kind of was, with Allison Russo in Ohio. She's the de facto head of the Democrat Party. She holds a lot of power in Columbus. And it was several years ago. You may remember the news story that broke in the Sandusky area. It turned out there was a Telegram group. Telegram's a private messenger app. There was a Telegram group of homeschool families, and it turned out that had some tie, that somebody had found. One of them believed in Nazism or something, so they'd communicated on Nazi beliefs or something. And so all of a sudden, Allison Russo and a bunch of other Democrats they're crying foul, and national media comes in and national news outlets, and they're focused on Sandusky. And is it true that all the homeschoolers, they're all Nazis? Because, boy, they'd love to run with that story to block us from being able to properly educate children and force everybody back into the government-run concentration camp apparatus, the education industrial complex. Well, there are a bunch of us that started pushing back, and one of the first things that I did is accuse Allison Russo of racism. Because if Allison Russo is going to look those kinds of numbers in the eye and say that the black kids, those black boys and girls who get taken out of government-run schools, do better than what she's saying to the world by trying to force kids back into government-run schools, is that she wants the black kids to do poorly. I used that argument and I blasted it all over social media. At the time, I was at least moderately recognized as one of the people connected with the board, a chair position, territory lead of Protect Ohio Children. We had and still actually have and enjoy a very big following. I think for that reason, mine is one of those arguments that landed, and Allison Russo and many others got very quickly silent on the Sandusky. I can't claim credit for it, but I'd like to hope that mine was one of those arguments that landed.
You played a role, yeah. And how could you not? Because you're exactly right. There's no other reason to say, no, these kids have to stay where they were to fail. They want them to fail because when they fail, they can again present themselves as the solution. This is exactly, it's how they keep, I hate the metaphor of being, chained to the Democrat plantation, but it's true. It is, it's just a different type. It's an emotional and psychological plantation. They keep black people thinking, I've got to stick with these people. They're the ones who are looking out for us. They're the ones who have our best interests at heart. Talking about the Democrats, because look at all of the stuff that they give us. Look at all of the things that they promise us. And what they don't promise them is independence. What they don't give them is an opportunity to be their best selves, to live and become not just survivors, but to thrive. Based on their talents and abilities. And when they're put in positions where they can be successful, like better schools, for crying out loud, if they start to become independent and they start to become, what they can be, they don't need the Democrats anymore. They might even start thinking for themselves. So Allison Russo and everybody else that, are responsible for this, they have a vested interest in keeping black kids in particular, but because they kind of have to be consistent, everybody staying exactly where their zip code says they should be, and letting them get out and being better does not help them. So it's no surprise at all.
And ultimately, sadly, it's all about the money. So you see the flow of money that goes in for decades. It's really been effectively defaulted by teacher salary into the teachers' unions, and teachers' unions are some of the biggest supporters of campaign contributions to Democrat Party. However, in Ohio, there's a great report that was released a couple of years ago by Linda Harvey, good friend of mine, who's also involved in Protect Ohio Children. She researched the money flowing through teachers unions to Ohio politicians, and lo and behold, many of them are Republicans, I'm air quoting that, in Ohio's State House. So Ohio's Republicans get a lot of money also. So that just leads to outrageous amounts of power. And you look at some of these school districts, and they have dismal, absolutely catastrophic, dismal results. But the flow of money is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. You look, the easiest way, I think, for people to grasp the size and scope of some of these school district budgets is a per student, per head fee, the per head spend rate. So we've got some in Northeast Ohio here that are over $30,000 per pupil, and we've got a few that are over $40,000. And the result is what I just generally refer to as barely literate. So you're getting kids who are confused, antagonized, not educated. They have no idea what system of government we enjoy here. They're taught virtually no history. They're just whipped up into a frenzy of anti-American hate and told that fill in the blank, point at somebody, some other group, that's the bad guy. The reason you're miserable and you feel that there's no hope in life is that group over there. And so that's identity politics. People are pitted against each other. And that flow of money, when you control $40,000 per pupil every year, there are a lot of people that can get paid big money to do either virtually nothing or worse, harmful things to kids.
Yeah, and that's why, school choice advocates and backpack bill advocates and so on and so forth, that's why we do what we do. That's why we say the money should not go to that district. It should follow the student. And if that student goes somewhere else, and I know that's why they're so freaked out about it, of course, is they lose that money. And that's how it ought to be, honestly. You want to keep getting that money, do better, perform better, provide better opportunities for these kids, find better ways to teach them, find a way to reach at-risk kids, do better with them, and they'll stay, and their families will be happy. And then you'll be able, take away the wokeness and all of the other things that these teachers unions, promote and push. Give kids an opportunity just to learn again and not be dictated to by, political agendas. And then you won't have to worry about losing the money. They'll stay. But until you get better, the money's got to go with the kid, wherever the kid needs to go, or the parents say that the kids need to go to get better. Jonathan, I want to get to a couple of other things with you, but I'm going to ask you to pause with me for just a moment while I remind everybody about one of our fantastic sponsors and foundational partners of Strictly Speaking Unfiltered, and that would be our friends at AFP, Americans for Prosperity. What an amazing event in Columbus, the America 250 event that I'm going to be a part of. Jonathan is going to be a part of. We're actually leaving just a short while today, in just a few hours today. We're going to be there for a great event, co-hosted by AFP. In fact, let me get that up there real quick. There's a brochure here. Not that you can, it's a little too late for the registration, but it's called One Small Step, this event that we're going to be a part of. It's America's 250th birthday celebration, and we're going to talk about Ohio's contribution to those 250 years and what small steps historical Ohioans have taken in order to better their state, better their community, and of course, make this nation what it is. And that is the greatest force for good in the history of human civilization. But AFP, Ohio, as well as the Libre Institute and Concerned Veterans for America, all teaming up to present this wonderful event. And they are also teaming up, are the folks at AFP, to help this state better in 4 core areas. This is what I originally showed you: economic opportunity, education, freedom, which Jonathan and I were just talking about, energy abundance, and government accountability. All of this is a part of what they're calling the Buckeye Blueprint, to make this state the best state that it can be, rather than middle of the road, but to be at the top of the pack, leading this country. It can be done, and all you've got to do is volunteer at the local level. Find your local AFP chapter and find a way to help in whatever capacity that looks like for you. Go to BuckeyeBlueprint.com, BuckeyeBlueprint.com. And again, AFP Ohio is a foundational partner and sponsor of Strictly Speaking Unfiltered, and I say that with great pride and appreciation. All right, I want to continue now with Jonathan to talk about 2 other things. Jonathan, I'm going to have to pull up my Signal chat on my phone here, because while I don't share anything that isn't supposed to be shared with other people, that's why it's encrypted, the Signal chat. You made a statement that I would like for you to kind of explain a little bit to everybody else about. And one of the statements you wrote was, or that you made, the only difference between today's Democrat Party and the Communist Party platform is the party name. Same agenda. The real problem is in the shortage of real Republicans in the Republican Party. Huge numbers are exactly the same as today's Democrats, and we risk our nation by pretending otherwise. I'll stop there. It was a little bit longer than that, but it's a pretty bold topic sentence in your little paper there. You said that the only difference between today's Democrats and the Communist Party is indeed in the name. Democrats have gone full on communist. I do not disagree one bit, but I know what I think about it. I want to hear how you explain that.
Well, there's a part of me that really feels bad for what I consider to be legacy Democrats. The old Democrat Party didn't used to be that way. And I think what's happened in my outside view, I mean, I can't claim to have any sort of inside perspective into the Democrat Party. I just know anecdotally a number of people who were involved and for years were very passionate about their Democrat candidates. They worked on campaigns and did door knocking and all that stuff. And really up until 2020 or up until mid-Trump, I guess, we could talk, we could, have a good laugh, and, we may disagree on things. That party, the whatever you want to call them, all the history, the background of the Democrat Party, what we used to call blue dog Democrats and the pro Second Amendment Democrats and the actual liberals, because let's face it, everything that they're doing and saying right now is very illiberal. By that, I mean, they do not allow any debate, any discussion, any dissent, any disagreement. It is my way or the highway. They are collectivists. And I think, again, this is my outside perspective of what I believe has happened to the Democrat Party. They were taken over. They were invaded by communist, Marxist ideas and a lot of money. And they in race after race, what I would consider traditional Democrats lost. They lost races all over the nation to Marxist communists. I mean, you look at the mayor of LA, you look at the background and training of people like Gavin Newsom and many of the others. They may smile nicely into the camera and they may say, calm, nice, wonderful things as they sort of shuffle around and seem like nice, everyday, average Americans, but they're not. These are people all throughout the United States who have, at their core, they have firm belief in the Marxist system, which is effectively robbed from all of us so that they can all get rich. And you see that with Bernie Sanders and other AOC and people like them. These are people that are going to complain about everybody else and all the identity groups until we're all bled dry and they're all worth 500 million or more. That's where they're headed and that's what they're doing. So I think from that standpoint, that's where the Democrat Party finds itself now. Some of those people have further crossed over and figured out in places like conservative Republican traditional values America, they can't win as Democrats because people figured out that game a while ago. And most of America, if you look at the map, any map you look at, I chafe. I am frustrated by the notion that there are any blue states. There are not. All states are red with blue dots. And all throughout that whole sea of red, there's the Democrats, generally speaking, don't have a chance. They are dishonest people, and we are in this supposed two-party system that it requires honesty. It requires people to be clear about their goals and intentions, and the left are not clear. They're dishonest and devious people. So they've invaded the Republican Party and gained office that way. So when we talk about uniparty and when we talk about there being very little or no discernible difference between voting Republican or voting Democrat, that's where that feeling comes from. We call it rhino sometimes. I run Ohio rhino hunters, whatever you want to call it. There are people within the Republican Party who don't belong there. And the crazy thing that's really mystifying to me is right now, one of the most vocal people that's trying to do that and clean things up within a party is Fetterman in Pennsylvania, who's a Democrat. He's pointing to people like the Obama family and saying, wait a minute, something doesn't smell right here. I think we've got some bad apples within the Democrat Party. If they can do it, why on earth can't we do a better job of doing it within the Republican Party? The answer, I think, is clear and simple. If we want to regain our republic, if we want to hold on to the constitutional republic that we all enjoy, whether you know it or not, whoever you listening audience, you are enjoying it. Just look at all the people over here for the World Cup, if for a comparative of what the rest of the world has to offer.
Mhm.
You are enjoying a constitutional republic. If you want to keep it, the only peaceful answer is precinct strategy, which is just a fancy name that's been applied to civics, the civics that we haven't been taught in the US since the 1950s and 1960s. All it does, precinct strategy reteaches America how to get involved with and run our representative republic. If we want we the people, if we want of the people, by the people, and for the people, it requires people understanding the system of government we have and how the levers of power work. If you want an example of how that can be used against us and abused, look at places like New Jersey, Michigan, Texas, Wisconsin, where there are immigrant Muslim communities who understand our system of government way better than we do, and they're doing a much better job of gaining power and then using it to gain more power. We can fight back. I know it can be frustrating when you see the Republicans within the Republican Party who don't belong there, but there is room for fight within the Republican Party. I think the Democrat Party is pretty much done for. It's 99% communist. The Republican Party, there's hope if enough people get active, get out there, get engaged, get involved, and start doing things locally within the Republican Party. It's precinct strategy. That's actually a website, nationalprecinctstrategy.com. My good friend Dan Schultz created it years ago, 16, I think years ago, 16, 17 years ago. Robert Beatles helped him with it. And locally here in Ohio, there's a website. It's ohioprecinctstrategy.org to get up and running.
Yeah, it was only a few weeks ago you and Dan came on this show and talked about precinct strategy and exactly that. And the frustrating thing I think for a lot of people is they hear what you're saying about what has to happen to kind of purge the Republican Party of all of these Democrats who are coming in here and kind of bringing their leftist ideas with them and creating a uniparty, and ultimately they're going to try to absorb and swallow up the traditional Republican Party. They look at that as a really, really, really long fight. Because how do we as small individuals, I'll tie this to our event today, one small step. How do we take one small step, toward what is such a massive goal, which is to literally cleanse the party of those, those who have invaded it, infiltrated it. They're almost like, paid informers, going in or double agents, whatever you want to call it. And what I wanted to ask you, Jonathan, about this is, how much of this do you blame on Donald Trump? And when I say blame on Donald Trump, make sure we understand what I mean by that is Trump's effectiveness, particularly since, in the first term and up until COVID, but Trump's effectiveness and his polarizing persona or personality, it has just driven the left off a cliff, at least I think. And I want to get your take on this. I literally have a newspaper in front of me from Saturday. It's a local newspaper here in Northeast Ohio. It doesn't matter which one. They're all pretty much the same. This is an AP story anyway. And the AP story's headline was, "Anti-Trump fervor fuels Democratic socialists." And it lists all of these, city races, mayoral races all across the country that are just being packed now with Democrat socialists who saw Mamdani win and who saw Wilson in Seattle win, and now they are inspired. And in fact, I think one line that I saw in this as I skimmed it, was that the number of Democrat socialists in the DSA, in the party, have increased from, yeah, here it is. The political organization has seen its membership ranks swell from a few thousand to more than 100,000 nationwide over the last decade, after an influx of younger Americans joined following the presidential bids of Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, also a self-described Democratic socialist. So the article, and I looked for it online just to see if I could, add something to our broadcast here. And the headline is different, but that's the article from ABC News. Democratic socialists surge in mayoral races across the country as anti-Trump fervor rises. So, Jonathan, that's a long setup to get your take on this, but they're saying that the socialists are pushing back harder than ever before because of Trump's success and the hatred they've been able to build for him. What do you say?
I think that for them, Trump makes a great figurehead for them to crash themselves against, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be anybody else. All they need is to have an enemy. You know the expression, always have an enemy. They have Trump to point at and say, well, we're going to go crazy for socialism because Trump is, oh my gosh, he's so bad. And they've had that drumbeat for 10 years now, complaining about Trump and making stuff up. The series of hoaxes and nonsense that they cart out. It's to create an enemy so that they can claim that that's the reason that they're coming out as they are. They were social democrats or communists or whatever you want to call them, regardless of who's in office. Here's the view, and I want to go back to a comment that I made earlier about the takeover of that party. The communists have taken over the Democrat Party, and it's clear in that headline. There's an excuse they're making for it so that the public can sort of identify with it and say, oh, well, gosh, I've heard such bad things about Trump. Never mind the fact that, they're all keep getting proven incorrect. They keep smearing him with accusations.
Well, they need to do that for another reason, if I may interject. Headline like that, because most people don't read beyond headlines. I hate to say that. Most American voters, casual news observers, they don't read the minutia. They don't read much past the first paragraph if they go that far. Headline is anti-Trump fervor fuels Democratic socialists. And I think socialism is bad. I've heard that before because I've heard about, Mao, and I've heard about, all of the communists and socialists. We can go to Stalin. We go back to Marxism, for crying out loud. We can talk about Pol Pot. We can talk about Cambodia. We can talk about Cuba. We can talk about Venezuela. All the socialist or communist countries. I heard that's really bad, but it's only because of Trump. And Trump's going to be gone soon, so we don't have to worry about all these socialists. I think that's the psychology behind headlines like this, because they know people are just going to be like, oh, well, the socialists are only responding to Trump, so we don't have to worry about the country becoming socialist. As long as Trump's going to be gone, then we don't have to worry about it. Then they'll go away too. That's what I think the intent is of messaging like that.
Well, there's a reason that history isn't taught. It's because here in America, we can use our supposed two-party system as a frame of reference, but it's generally understood that those who understand history are much more likely to vote Republican in the United States. The dumber you are, and the less likely you are to understand history, the more likely you are to lean into and believe the hype and ridiculousness and nonsense of the far left. The social democrats.
But the irony of that, Jonathan, the irony, if you want to call it irony, I don't even know if that's the right word for it here, but is if you look at those with advanced degrees, the higher the educational level, the more left they are. But yet, as you just said, kind of the dumber you are, the more left you are. Those two things go hand in hand because it proves what you were talking about at the grade school, government school level is times 10, times 100 on the advanced educational level. In other words, once you graduate high school and you go into undergraduate studies and, God forbid, graduate studies or doctoral studies, you get smarter in terms of the number of degrees you pile up, but you become so indoctrinated with things that just aren't so, that it makes you almost functionally being the key word here, illiterate.
All right, so that's a little bit of a different rabbit hole, but it's worth exploring. So there are common, very well-known understanding out there from a few different sources, including, I believe it was 1968, that the Communist Manifesto was read into the congressional record audibly. It was read into the congressional record. And one of the prime goals was to take over education and retrain the American mind to stop thinking in terms of freedom, autonomy, independence, self-preservation, you name it, all the good things, and train people into collectivist thinking. And identity politics are used in that regard. So the longer somebody's on a college campus, generally speaking, the more time they have to get indoctrinated in that. And there are a few others as well, like How to Defeat America Without Firing a Single Shot. That speaks to the intention of taking over the US education system and turn America inside out. So, and there's so many beautiful, ugly, amazing pieces of history that all fit there. Once you start getting a taste for it and develop the desire to understand it, it becomes jaw-dropping how little we have been taught and how little we actually know. To frame the conversation, I'm going to outline an experience that I had. I came from a very good education background, and my family thought that I was very well educated. However, in the context of American history, slavery, and black and white, it wasn't until after college, I started actually reading Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington. I discovered the abolitionist movement in detail. I actually started to read the Federalist papers, the Anti-Federalist papers, and things like that. I realized fairly quickly that I was told a version of history that relied on telling me, I want to ballpark about maybe 5% of history. 95% of our history was just never taught to me, and I didn't know it. And I didn't know the commonality and the same interests that Black and white America have had throughout history, and the collaboration and all the beautiful things that we've done together. Not knowing that, it disarmed me and made me more likely, as I went into college years, to adopt all those things and be one of those people out there with my fist in the air. Yes, social justice. I need to fight for fill in the blank because they're oppressed, and I'm going to be the great savior, whatever. No, we're not. What we have is an environment again and again and again where it is government that is the enemy of doom. So there was a connected thought to that. Hold on a second. It's going to come back to me. It's going to take us back to one of the earlier points. What were we talking about right before we got into college education? And oh, I hate when that happens.
No,
it was an exciting point that I wanted to make.
It's the ADD brain, and a lot of people who do what I do for a living and what you are involved in and to have it, and our brain is scattershot going in a million different places.
Yeah.
But I think we were still just on the bigger picture of the Democrat invasion of the Republican space, and you had said something about how the dumber you are, the more likely you are to lean into Democrat left-leaning thinking. And that's when I went into the educational element kind of proves it. Even though you get higher education, you get a little bit dumber because of what they do.
Yeah. So you've got a whole bunch of intention to hijack the brain. And I just used one example. I'm using myself as an example in the realm of race relations, because generally speaking, from outside of the US, that's viewed as one of our weakest links. It's the prime attack vector. It has been for generations, going after and constantly working to pit black versus white. All this has everything to do with our history, how well armed we are, how sophisticated we are as a nation, the strength of our military. We are a nation that can't be, well, it's extremely unlikely that any nation would attack us from the outside. So, therefore, it makes the most sense for our adversaries to try to work on getting us to fight each other. If they can create a civil war sort of environment or one where we're just fractured, divide and conquer, that's what they've been doing forever. So it's man versus woman, those those terrible men, or you're mansplaining, and women are all bad, and all the narratives that are given to us divide us, and the further divided we are, the weaker we are. We have been definitely since the end of World War II, a very strong, very patriotic nation, which means that we rally behind each other, we support each other. The crazy cool thing, and I like to pepper in the glimpses of beautiful hope. Do you remember when Rich Men North of Richmond came out?
Yeah.
And of course, that
Oliver Anthony, I think.
Arthur Anthony.
Oliver Anthony.
Oliver Anthony. Oliver Anthony. And there were a whole bunch of people that were like, of course, it's this pale ginger guy who's really pale with red hair. And everyone's like, that, he's just some racist or whatever. And Black musical artists came out of the woodwork and were doing mashups. And they were putting it to the same beat, and they were adding rap. And there were a lot of people in that era, as the left and a lot of our outside agitators were saying that, it's terrible, race relations are awful, and, Black and white Americans hate each other, because that's the narrative, that's the drumbeat that's been fed to the nation outside of the US forever. At the same time, there was a prevailing, beautiful sentiment in the United States that was basically along the lines, and you see white people and Black people both saying it like, hey, we may fight and argue, but that's my brother. If you go after him, you're coming after me.
Mm-hmm.
That was beautiful to hear. Even if we're at odds, or we're bickering or whatever, we're still Americans at our core. And that is the strength that our enemies are trying to figure out how to dismantle and get rid of, because if they can do that, we will be destroyed. That's where K through 12, government-run schools, leading into college, leading into postdoctorate and graduate school comes in, because there they have a captive. It's like the proverbial barrel to shoot fish in. Once they get children's minds captive in that, get them all confused so they have no stable footing, make them devoid of historical understanding, rob them of an understanding of our political system and how it works, then make sure to pit them against each other, Black versus white, religion, you name it. Then we're divided. Then they can start with the cure to this angst that you're feeling. The cure is socialism, because that will be utopia.
Right. And Jonathan, I want to ask you something, because I asked you a few minutes ago an oversimplified question about how much of this do you blame on Trump, meaning the left's hatred for Trump bringing in socialism. How much of what you just described about the divide between Black and white, the intentional division of Black from white, which, as you said, around the world, people look at the United States, and one of the biggest criticisms of the United States is our race relations. How much of it do you blame on the election of and the governance of Barack Obama?
Oh, it's Obama, absolutely. I mean, that was just foisted upon us. I believe that there was nefarious agenda behind the push for this no-name guy who's a smooth talker into the White House, and a lot of what ensued. You heard him in the speeches leading up to it. He had public speeches where he was saying, hey, as far as race relations, we're like 95% of the way there. There's just a little bit more work to be done. And then once he was in office, he flipped into racist mode and pitting us against each other. And that could be my son comments. And it was just antagonism upon antagonism. That's critical race theory. And that's these people that the ends justify the means. By the way, I do want to interject another element going back to the comments that I was making about precinct strategy and how we can fix this. In January or February, it was early 2023, a beautiful statement was released by Trump about Dan Schultz and precinct strategy. It's on the website. You can see it. There's a big image of President Trump.
Which website, Jonathan?
Precinctstrategy.com.
The statement from Trump is
Precinctstrategy.com.
the statement from Trump is on that site.
It is. If you scroll down a little bit, there's an image of Donald Trump.
Keep talking. I'm going to try to find it while you're talking. Go ahead. Tell us more about it.
Okay. Yeah, he's basically Trump outlines it as a beautiful answer that it saves our republic. It encourages people to get involved at the local level. So Trump, I believe, by questioning, there you go. If you scroll down a little, that's a great video, by the way. Everyone should watch that video. Keep going down. There it is. There's the quote. The precinct strategy, as explained by Dan Schultz, is a great way to restore our republic by transforming our party from currently at less than half strength at the precinct level into full strength, get out the vote powerhouse. So that it's a spectacular quote. That's how we can counter the next Mandani. The Democrat Party, infused with communists, they know this stuff. And they're out there using it. They don't want us to be powerful within the Republican Party. The weaker the Republican Party, the better. If they can hire in, if they can fill the Republican Party with a bunch of stuffed shirt rubber stampers, or better yet, as weak as possible, with most of the seats or half of the seats empty, which is about where it is, and feckless, do-nothing people in the Republican Party, they can run roughshod over us. And that's what we're seeing. If I'm right, if you agree with me, listening audience, if you agree with me that the Communist Party has taken over the Republican Party and they now run it, then the inverse, the opposite, is also true. If we, the people, patriots, the people who believe in our representative form of government, our constitutional republic, if we, the people, take over the Republican Party in the same way, using the same apparatus, the same tactics, the same strategy, we will give ourselves back representative government and power. If you believe in the Make America Great Again, America First initiative, and yes, I am asking you, I know some of the audience are out there confused by all the allegations against Trump, and maybe you hate him, and maybe you're TDS, but you think that you're America First. Fine. Okay. I'm okay with that. Trump's going to be there for a few more years. What comes next? If you're worried about what comes next, it's absolutely precinct strategy. If you need to compartmentalize some hatred for Trump and his mean tweets, fine. I'm okay with that. Focus on precinct strategy. Focus on filling up your local Republican Party with people who think like you do, not the people who could be confused for Democrats, or maybe they just don't show up for years on end. We get that all the time as well. There are people here locally that they've been elected comparable to me. I served for 4 years. I didn't miss a single meeting. I actually created a spreadsheet, and I took the minutes from every meeting and I charted with an X or a check mark who attended. We had, in my local county, it's frustrating because we're conservative. We're a conservative county that lean heavily Republican, but we had people elected into these seats, and we were making important votes during those 4 years, and we were supposedly taking important actions. We had people that didn't show up for like maybe 2 or 3 times in 4 years. I think a few people just never showed up for 4 years. They got elected and they never came. There was a few people got appointed and they never came. And that's an outrage. That's what I call feckless. The more powerless, the more dumbed down and ridiculous and clown show the Republican Party is, the more the left can run roughshod over us. So they're just a flurry of activity. They're tenacious. They're anxious to get their job done. They have a mission. They pound the podium, and they're very, very active. On our side, we're seeing it in DC. We see it in Columbus, Ohio, with noteworthy exceptions, like State Representative Jennifer Gross, who's actually good and actually cares and fights and advocates. She's one of a few. But if we fill the Republican Party full of people like that, I'm telling you, the next Mondani,
Sky's the limit.
they have no chance. No chance at all.
Yeah, the sky's the limit. You're right about Representative Gross too, and I'm glad you brought her up. So Jonathan, I flashed up on the screen there the Voice of Geauga Facebook page. So I want to flash this up here on the screen now because there's an event coming up day after tomorrow.
Yep.
If we can put this up there. That made me go away. So we'll try it this way now. And all right, now that's not quite exactly how I want it to be, but that's okay. We'll roll with it this way then. So Jonathan, what you see there is a brochure that you were kind enough to share with me, and I want you to share with everybody else what's going on Wednesday.
So Wednesday this week at a beautiful place called Veterans Legacy Woods, which is part of the Metro Park system in Geauga County. We're having a fundraiser. I'm calling it a fundraiser because we've got all kinds of super cool plans to engage and entertain people. We have, as I mentioned, we launched Voice of Geauga on December 2nd last year, 2025. Unfortunately, the day after the dubious rug pull or prison shank, as you put it, Bob, and I think that's more adept. We launched. It takes money for us to keep this thing going. So we do go out there. We have on our website, there's the ability to go down at voiceofgeauga.com. You can scroll down. We're asking people to subscribe. We've got a big and rapidly growing following. We've got really, really good feedback from the community. We overwhelmingly, not completely, but overwhelmingly are very, very well liked and very well received in Geauga County. So there's an ability to donate. There's an ability to subscribe, but I decided several weeks ago, it's time to have some fun. We have a number of voices behind Voice of Geauga. There's Skip Claypool was mentioned, me, and an array of other hosts and guests, including Bob. Bob has graciously agreed to come out and help to entertain the masses at Veterans Legacy Woods at 6:30 on Wednesday. So here's what we do. We believe in Voice of Geauga and local business. I have not spoken to and have no interest for our purposes in any big retail chains. All of these gift baskets, and there are now over 15 of them. I think we're at 16 now. We've got, and just for anybody in the area who may be interested, we have the amazing, amazing gift baskets from area businesses. It gives us the opportunity to promote area businesses. There are such beautiful, great mom and pop shops all over Geauga County. We've got, just running quickly through the list here, Heritage Meats, which is a local organic butcher. They have all kinds of grass-fed beef, etc. Great Lakes Outdoor Supply Company, Country Furnishings Decor, Crooked River Adventures, which is paddle boats and canoes and stuff. It's amazing. World famous Iron Horse Saloon, Guido's Pizzeria, which around here is legendary. Pinnacle Adventure Park, Veterans of Foreign Wars, that's the VFW, American Legion, Hamden Supply, Geauga Auto Parts, and others are giving gift baskets, and we're going to be hosting a raffle. I hope to fill the room. I hope that we bring in enough that we can pay for a couple of months worth of the radio show. It's not inexpensive to do, but it's really important because we have to find ways of getting the real news out to we the people. One last note on that, there is as a suggestion on my part that more communities should take this as an idea, as a model, and get out in your community. Talk about starting a community-based journalist effort to, and Skip, I'll tell you, really gets after it. He's a former commissioner in Geauga County, has grown to become a very good friend of mine. He's a solid voice of reason. He aggravates the heck out of the left, but he constantly, because he's retired and has the time to do it, he's in county commissioners meetings and planning and zoning commission meetings and you name it. And then he brings that info back. We parse it, we get it out there to the public, and it's making an impact. You can tell by the hilarious and kind of ridiculous attacks from the left. They don't like us. which tells us we're on the right path.
You're doing it right. That's exactly right, Jonathan. If you are over the target, if they're on you that much, and I love Skip for that reason, because the left hates him as well.
Yeah.
So that's Wednesday, the 24th, so day after tomorrow. If you're watching this, just whenever that might be, if you're watching this on replay. So it's going to be Wednesday at Veterans Legacy Woods, 6:30 p.m. A lot of great speakers there, including Jonathan Skip, Ralph Spitaglieri, who's a commissioner, Commissioner Tim Lennon, and others who were on that list there. You can go to, well, that Facebook page is what I kept popping up there, Jonathan, is the Voice of Geauga Facebook page. Is the regular website is just voiceofgeauga.com?
That's it. And by the way, I did find one of the newspapers. So this is it. This is one of our newspapers. It folds out, so you too can enjoy something like this if you're in or around Geauga County. These come out monthly, and they, as I said, we're at almost 44,000 mailings each month. So we send these out, and it contains the news and information that you wish that either local media or your local Republican Party would get out there and get after. There it is. And so, oh yeah, that's another good point. The newspaper is also published on the website in something called Flipbook. So you can flip through the pages virtually, just the same way that you would a physical paper.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love what you're building, Jonathan. It's great. I hope to be a part of it in some capacity at some point. I really do. When the time allows me to be more available, I'd love to help you guys in any way that I can promote such a thing, because I think you guys are absolutely on the right path, and I support everything that you have been talking about, and Skip as well.
Thank you.
You guys have been fantastic, Jonathan Broadbent.
Can I interject? Sorry to interrupt. I want to interject for purposes of the audience. I do hope that you come and find us. Get a ticket. If you go to voiceofgeauga.com and scroll down, there's an opportunity to get a ticket. Tickets are limited, and we are asking for a cover at the door of $25. The reason, well, that helps our show stay on the air, but also we're trying to cut back on riffraff. We know that there are some people out there that would like to silence us. If we did it my way and just had a big outdoor open venue, I know that the lunatic left would probably show up with bullhorns and clanging pots and pans and being ridiculous. You're so right. There is the cover for that reason. And because we're limited, we are asking people to pre-purchase the tickets.
So yeah, I'm glad to see you doing that. That's smart. It's a good way to keep them out of there. So there's a QR code that people can see right there. And there's also a link, which you can also see, and you can actually click if you go to the webpage yourself, voiceofgeauga.com. It's right there on the homepage. If you see the masthead right there, then the welcome, and then there it is. It's the very first thing that you can see. So that's fantastic. Jonathan, thank you for coming on and for sharing so much fantastic information with us. And thanks for what you're doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the bus down to Columbus when we celebrate America 250 and talk about Ohio's role in that. And then I will see you again on the stage or whatever you may need of me on Wednesday night. I will be there at the Voice of Geauga event as well. So Jonathan Broadbent, thank you. We appreciate you very much.
Same goes, Bob. Thank you.
All right, there you go. That's Jonathan Broadbent joining us, and I'll tell you what, that's a knowledgeable man. That's a dedicated man. That's a driven man. That's one of the reasons why I was so excited about meeting him a few years back when I saw him going from place to place to place. It's like he was everywhere. You know, I mean, we're talking about it's not just one school district, school board meeting that borders another. He was bouncing all over the state.
Another name on the paper.
So he's
another hard case.
Obviously, of course, of Geauga.
Got a wife back in Lubbock. Kids in their Sunday best. I ain't some villain in a movie.
All right, speaking of hard work, there are a lot of other people doing my best. Including our man, Charlie Kalani, and Charlie's Auto Repair. How do we, of course, have been listening to somebody save today. You hold that sign, I hold this line. He's one of a kind. First of all, he's a MAGA mechanic. That's amazing. He is America first. That is also amazing. And he's just a wizard when it comes to electronics and vehicles, and of course, the traditional maintenance and repairs that you need to your vehicle. Pretty much all right.
Saw you playing for cameras.
That's part about
shoving phones in my crew.
It's not the great work he's going to do.
Spitting words like traitors, like you know we
It's his
go
honesty.
through.
It's his integrity.
When
All
you
right?
circle that
If he tells you it's going to
transport,
cost this much, that's
like
what it's
it's
going
some
to cost.
kind of
He's not going to
game.
overcharge you when you show up to pick up
There's a
your car.
scared little girl in the back
Took 2 more
seat.
hours later
You
than I
don't
thought. It's
even know her
another
name.
$150 bills. No.
You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody saved today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hand.
Call this phone number
While you
and
dance
set
in
up
the
an
street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the
216-417-0172. Anywhere in North Ohio, particularly Northeast Ohio. It's in Lake Rouge, it's in our maps. 216-417-0172.
You say you care about people, but then you shove them into harm's way. You turn a bus into a battlefield. I'm just trying to get them home today. Call me every name you can think of. I'll still show up when it hits the fan. When the dust clears, when fear's near, we'll see who really reigns.
For a young person growing up in this
You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody saved today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hand. While you stand in the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand.
All right, everybody. I appreciate Jonathan Broadbent very much, and hopefully you continue to enjoy the music. I've got a new one, by the way. I wrote it. I uploaded it. I asked an AI song maker to make it. It's not exactly a replica parody of Ice Ice Baby, but I wrote Ice Ice Agent. And I wrote it in the same verse. I wrote it with the same beat. I wrote it with the same rhyme rhythm and so on and so forth, so that it would match Ice Ice Baby perfectly. But with my lyrics, AI won't replicate the music because that's copywritten. Obviously, that's kind of what got Vanilla Ice in trouble, because he stole the beat and the music basically from David Bowie from Under Pressure. So we know the story. Anyway, so I wrote it. And I asked AI to perform it, and so they changed the music. So you won't hear the traditional and familiar dun 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 Ice. So you're not going to hear that. But I think it's pretty good. They had to change the music, and the rapper doesn't sound like Vanilla Ice. It sounds like his own AI persona, but it's done. It's done, and I'm torn at this moment in time about whether I release it as is or I wait for Jonathan. Because my guy, Johnny Hiles, he has voiced a number of the parody songs that I've written. And I've got almost enough for an album now that I've written through the last few years, because Johnny's just a phenomenal talent. He's got an incredible singing voice. I asked him, can you rap? Because he does, like I said, he's a rocker, if you want to call him that. But he's just got a great voice. He can do a lot of different genres of music. I said, can you rap it or hip hop it the way Vanilla Ice does? And he said he's going to try it. And so I'm waiting to see what his looks like and sounds like. But I'm really excited about the AI version that I have. So I keep giving you Line in the Sand, and I keep giving you Red, White, and Raise Hell, and some other things. What else do I have up there besides, as far as AI creations? Line in the Sand, and what else do I have? Well, I can't find them all right now. But obviously, my parodies, Hunters in the Basement, GTFO, the Fred Rogers remix, the Mr. Rogers doing the boys are boys and girls, the story. Boys are boys from the beginning, girls are girls right from the start, blah, blah, blah. The remix, the Johnny Hiles version of it is incredible. That shows you how talented he is. But I've got so many of those things, but I got another one coming. So sit tight. It'll be coming your way just as soon as I decide whether I want to drop the AI version of it or if I want to wait for Johnny to give me his version of it. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right. What I do want to do now, though, is I want to talk about something that I wrote about this. In fact, I wonder if I can pull this up in short order here. Let's see if I can do this. View this as a web page. And is it going to let me do that? It might not. But for Sunday's daily briefing, my Sunday briefing that I get out every Sunday morning to you at 6 a.m. with 5 things to know this week and 5 things to do this week and a video of the week and so forth. I'm just hang on one second. I just want to see. I want to show this to you rather than just share it with you. But I've got to kind of hunt it down if I can in time here. Yeah, here it is. I think I can share this now. There we go. Just to make it a lot easier. We'll share this, and then we'll come up here, and I'll go boom, and there you go. Strictly speaking, this week. So if you're not a subscriber yet, by the way, become a subscriber. I don't know how many ways I can tell you that. It's an important thing. I mean, seriously, I put a ton of time and a ton of work into this. It's a lot of really important commentary and content and maybe information you didn't know before. And if you did know it before, it's maybe new ways to look at it and think about certain stories than maybe you would have otherwise. So there's the QR code. Take your phone out and scan that, okay? Take your phone out and get your little camera out and scan that, and you can subscribe, and you'll get this in your inbox each and every week. Sunday mornings, 6 a.m., almost without fail. I think I've missed one Sunday morning in 2 years since I started this. I think one time, and that was a vacation situation. But anyway, scan that if you would, please. It's really, really important for Strictly Speaking this week. Okay. Now back to the point that I'm trying to make, because this is what I want to discuss. So here it is. Okay. So we're going to scroll down to 5 things to know this week. The radical left is hopelessly addicted to violence. The mom is not what it seems. It's a memorandum of misunderstanding. I'm sorry. We don't like to say it. We don't want to have to say it, but I think this Iran situation got uglier. And the memorandum of understanding, I think, is sunk. I think it's a memorandum of misunderstanding. And I don't even know if the Strait is open right now. The real nuke, speaking of nukes in Iran, the real nuke was dropped by Tulsi Gabbard. We covered this at length. Major League Baseball refuses to give God's rainbow back to him. We covered that at length as well. And if you see a group of Democrats, you know that 4 of them hate you. 4 in every 10 Democrats say they're ashamed to be American. That's a problem. Video of the week there was reliving history with General George Washington. That was from Ken Hammontree. You recall that. And then here we go. This is a Father's Day greeting. There it is. This is what I wanted to share with you. Take a look at that little image that I created. The success sequence, the proven path to stability and success. 1, graduate high school. 2, get a job, become gainfully employed. 3, get married. 4, have babies. In that order. Okay, and I put that up there as one of the 5 things to do this week, but obviously you don't have to do all 5 of them this week, or all of those things, I should say, this week. You don't have to graduate, get a job, get married, and have a kid all this week, but you do understand the point. Here's what I'm bringing up. Ohio just passed this bill requiring public schools to teach that. That's it, just requiring it as a graduation requirement. The success sequence should be taught. Finish high school, secure full-time work, get married, then have kids. Decades of data showed, oh, I got a typo there. Look at that. Decades of data show that 97% of those who follow this sequence avoid living in poverty as adults. It's common sense backed by reality. Democrats predictably melted down over it. I'll click that link and share that with you. This is how Cleveland.com framed it. Are you seeing that? Yeah, you are. Okay, I just got to double check on everything here because I'm flying solo on this one. So this is how Cleveland.com framed it. It sounds simple enough. Graduate from high school, get a full-time job, and get married before having children. Do those things, and you're far less likely to end up in poverty. Ohio lawmakers are so sold on this idea. Can I enlarge that for you? Ohio lawmakers are so sold on this idea, they've passed a bill now sitting on Governor Mike DeWine's desk. Today, an Ohio podcast host call it dangerous nonsense, because of course they do. Chris Quinn, who is an absolute psychopath, the chief editor at Cleveland.com, the Cleveland Plain Steamer, Chris Quinn hosts this ridiculous little, Democrat pitch session every single or multiple times a week. Chris Quinn said, yeah, this is just dumb. I could do a study and come out and say, that the most important thing you can do to be successful in Ohio is be white and be wealthy. You can cherry pick data to tell almost any story you want. What the hell is wrong with the left? But this is exactly what I knew was going to happen. This is, why I wanted to talk about this right now. It got worse when you look at, let me read the rest of this. Representative Sean Brennan of Parma dragged out a desperate personal anecdote about his mom, who was abused by her husband, his dad, and left struggling with 2 kids to raise on her own, as if that single tragedy disproves the overwhelming statistical truth for millions. This emotional manipulation ignores personal responsibility, bad choices, and the protective power of stable 2-parent homes. Representative Beryl Brown Pickle Antonio decided that correlation is not causation and just ignored mountains of evidence. Typical left-wing idiocy. Even worse, a handful of Republicans sold their souls to the soulless Democrats and joined them in voting against this bill. Representatives Haraz Ganbari, of whom I know nothing, Gail Manning, of whom I know way too much, and Jason Stevens, the Blue 22 speaker. They deserve to be remembered for siding with the chaos caucus over basic common sense and bounced out of the legislature on their respective rhino asses. Reject the left's chaos that celebrates single motherhood, delayed marriage, and fatherless homes as empowerment. Strong families built on the success sequence built America. Let's get back to what works. So this is what I wanted to talk about. This should not take a monologue. That fair to say? This really should not require an entire monologue, because it is about as simple as that little chart that I showed you up there that I had AI make for us. It's about as simple as that. Graduating high school before having kids. What do you think? Getting a job before getting married. No, let's get married and have no way of supporting one another, supporting, a family. Let's definitely have kids before we get married and before we have a full-time job, because that would be a way better order of things. I mean, this is what the left would have you think. That should be the end of the story. If you think that having kids and getting married before you graduate high school, before you get a job and can support yourself and said kid or kids, there's no point in having this conversation if you think that. It is about as simple as that. But I want you to hear what some of the lunatics say. So I gave you a little bit of the Cleveland Plain Steamer version of things. This is far, far worse, because this is the Ohio Capital Journal. Are you familiar with this publication? If you are, I apologize. It's painful. The Ohio Capital Journal is the most notorious left-wing rag or publication or online publication, whatever it is you want to call it, in the entire state. It's worse than the Plain Steamer. It's worse than the Columbus Dispatch. It's worse than the Cincinnati Enquirer and the Toledo Blade put together. All right? The radical leftist papers in all of the big blue cities. The Ohio Capital Journal trumps all of them. I want to read you just a little bit about what their argument was here. They start out with, of course, Ohio Senate Bill 276 passed during Wednesday's House session. The Ohio Senate concurred with the changes made in the bill later that night before going on summer break. There's your holdouts: Republicans Ganbari, Manning, and Stevens. None of whom are Republicans. None of whom are Republicans. They do not deserve our support. And if Alex Triantafilou has any courage at all in his soul, he will encourage the Ohio Republican Party, Executive Committee, State Central Committee, whatever they have to do to find ways to get these people the hell out of the legislature. Not just because of this bill, but because of careers long full of this nonsense. Stevens, we've talked about. Manning, we've talked about. Ganbari, I don't know much about at all. State Senator Christina Rogner Hudson introduced the bill, which originally began as legislation that would allow Ohio to join the Interstate Compact for School Psychologists. which allows licensed professionals to provide services across state lines. That's fine. I've got no real strong beef about that one way or the other. I think it's a good idea, quite frankly. There are kids who go to school in other states, go to college in other states, but their residence is in Ohio. And if they need, mental health counseling or whatever the case might be, they can't even talk to their original counselor. They got to find one in the state they're in, or they got to travel home to do it. It's stupid. But that's what the bill was ostensibly about, but it was much, much more than that. The Ohio House Education Committee made changes to the bill, adding the success sequence that you and I are talking about. Sarah Fowler Arthur, great representative from Ashtabula, said young people are statistically far less likely to live in poverty when they complete high school, work full-time, and marry before having children. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not breaking any news. Those things are obvious to everybody. Making it a requirement in schools to tell that to everybody and have a course about that, so kids will think twice before being ridiculously reckless and having unprotected sex with other teenagers in high school, that's going to wreck the outcome of their lives, or statistically speaking, will have a much greater chance of wrecking the outcome of their lives. All right, they're going to end up in poverty for all of the wrong reasons. It didn't have to be this way if somebody would have just educated them on this. So what the Republicans in the state legislature are doing is saying, let's educate young people. Gee, what a stunning development. What a great idea. And is that hard to understand? Let's educate kids at school about ways to become successful. We can teach them algebra. How much are they going to use it? I don't know. But we're going to teach it to them anyway, because it could help them become successful as they learn how to problem solve. That's fine. Let's teach them classic literature. It's going to broaden their minds, help them think about concepts in a lot of other ways. Teach them about American history. Teach them about science. Teach them about biology, chemistry, and physics if need be too. How much are those things going to help kids compared to teaching them, don't get knocked up in high school? Don't knock up your girlfriend in high school. Don't get married before you get a job. Get your diploma, bare minimum. Then if you're going to go to college, go to college. If you're going to go to work. Make a living, earn some money. Then if you are in love with your high school sweetheart or somebody you met along the way, then get married. Then once you can provide for them have the children. That's, again, Republicans are saying, let's teach this in schools. And Democrats are saying, no, don't teach that. That's a terrible idea. Teaching them that the success sequence, that 97% of Ohioans who follow that order of things are not in poverty as adults, that are at the bare minimum in the middle class and working and surviving, if not thriving. No, don't teach them how to do that. What a terrible idea. But that's what the left says. So let me go back to a little bit of this for you. Here we go. So this is again the Ohio Capitol Journal. The Heritage Foundation, the right-wing think tank that published Project 2025, they say that as if it's an accusation, provides model legislation for the success sequence. The bill requires Ohio Department of Education and Workforce to have a curriculum list for success sequence for grades 6 through 12, and it would be a graduation requirement. Again, perfect sense. However, they say, a 2021 study funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services found those who finish high school, work full-time, and get married are less likely to experience poverty, but the order did not matter as much. There's the line from Beryl Brown Picolantonio from Geauga. I feel like some of us might have missed the basic statistical lesson that correlation is not causation. It completely misses the fact that there are so many other explanations for why so many people struggle so much in life. Teaching that graduation, then work, then marriage, then kids equals success also leaves out all of the unique ways that people live in our state. Number one, nobody gives a rat's freaking ass about the other unique ways people live in your state. The fact that 97% of people who follow this sequence, this pattern achieve at least a modicum of success that keeps him out of poverty means it's a good message to teach. Nobody says that there aren't other ways that people live, but this is the one that is going to almost guarantee success. Why would you be disputing this? Answer. If I had a drum roll on cue here, I would play a drum roll right now. Answer. Because they're Democrats and they're stupid and they're hateful and they want to oppose anything and everything that Republicans do, particularly majority Republicans in the state of Ohio. If they say up, it's like Trump, what they do with Trump. If Trump says oxygen is great, Democrats hold their breath. Right? If the Republicans say, graduating high school and getting a job before getting married and having kids is a better way to do things, they're saying, no, because there's a lot of other ways to do stuff, and stuff. Wait till that's not even the worst of it. Wait till you get the worst of it. Representative Sean Brennan from Parma, that's right in our backyard, right? Northeast Ohioans, shared the story of his mom who graduated high school, got a job, got married, and eventually gave up her job to raise her 2 children. In other words, she did it the right way, the success sequence. But listen to his little anecdote. Her path did not follow a fairy tale outcome. She suffered horrible abuse from her husband, lost everything when he left. She's forced to work 2 low-paid non-union jobs supplemented by public assistance to keep clothes on her kids' backs and food on the table. And she later died of breast cancer. The so-called success sequence didn't save my mother, didn't shield her from poverty or systemic societal problems. Just because some individuals who follow a certain pathway avoid poverty doesn't mean those steps cause success for everyone. Mr. Brennan, Representative Brennan, I'm going to say I have sympathy for the plight that your mother endured. I'm going to say that you have my sympathy and condolences for her early loss of life due to breast cancer. And I'm sorry that she struggled. But what in the flying hell are you talking about? How does your mother's decision to marry the wrong man who was abusive to her change the success sequence? He beat her and left her struggling to raise 2 kids. You're going to focus on the legislation here of the success sequence and say that sequence didn't work for her, so why should we teach this to everybody? How about condemning domestic violence from, and you said her husband, you didn't say your father, so I don't know if it was different marriage or children from a different dad or what. I don't know if it's your father or not, but the way you told the story in the Ohio Capital Journal, she suffered horrible abuse from her husband and lost everything. So because he is a low-life piece of human freaking crap, it changes the success sequence that 97% of people who follow find success with. It changes that. So we shouldn't teach that because the guy who married your mother was a piece of crap. That's your answer as to why you're voting against this? That anecdote? It's no wonder your party is persona non grata in the Buckeye State. I mean, honestly, you people are a stampede of stupid. This is why you have a supermajority Republican legislature in the Ohio General Assembly. This is why you have every single statewide office, which, by the way, eliminates the district drawings that you like to blame for all of the legislative Republican majorities. But the statewide seats, all of them belong to the Republicans because your party is so god-awful stupid. You think people are going to listen to you tell your sob story, which is a terrible one about your mom, and say that, yeah, well, he's right. That success sequence thing might not work for 100% of the people, so let's just not teach that in school. Let's let kids think that, maybe you can do those things out of order. Maybe you can get pregnant at 17 and maybe or maybe not graduate and maybe or maybe not find a job later and not have to live off of the state for all of your needs and Section 8 housing and on Medicaid and on welfare and food stamps. And, you know, that's successful too in some ways. Good God Almighty. Why are you so obstinate about everything? All of you reckless left-wing Democrats. Brennan also said teaching the success sequence is one more burden on teachers. They're already stretched thin, you know, and this part of this bill adds another requirement. You know, those teachers, making them teach something that could actually be productive and helpful for the students. You know, you put a little more burden on them, teaching kids that having babies before graduating high school is a bad idea. That's a hell of a burden. Boy, oh boy. Teaching them that getting knocked up and getting married before you can support either a wife, you know, a spouse, or the children. You shouldn't be teaching them that because, you know, it's really hard for teachers to have to do that, to be able to do that. I honestly sometimes don't know what to think about whether or not you people think at all. I do radio in Houston. I'm doing it this morning, in fact. One of my favorite callers in Houston radio taught me that phrase. I've never forgotten it. And I use it rarely because it's got to be, I guess rare, that's redundant, but it's got to be something that is held for special occasions or else it loses its impact. But seriously, Sean Brennan, Democratic representative from Parma, and Pickle Antonio or whatever it was from Gahanna, stampede of stupid. If that's the best argument you can make against teaching kids the right order to be successful, to not be in poverty, then like I said, get along, little doggy. Get to stampeding, honestly, because you people are freaking clueless. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for today. It's a little bit of a shorter episode, but I kind of figure it balances out a little bit because Friday, when I gave you those two really long interviews, we talked to Kelly Bowler, and then we talked to Ken Hammontree. That was like a 2.5 hour episode. So if I make this one about 1 hour and 45 minutes or so, you can give me a little bit of grace here, right? I'm teasing, of course, but that's pretty much what I'm asking for. So that's it for today. Obviously, we didn't touch Iran today. It's probably a good thing. I'm going to let things shake out a little bit more, see what happens in Switzerland with Vice President Vance, see what the next statement is, see what President Trump says next on Truth Social, and just cross our fingers that the strait isn't closed again and we're right back to where we started. I don't know where it's going to head. Obviously, I have some strong feelings about where it is. I want to do what's right by our country, and I want to trust my president, and I want to trust my vice president, and I want to trust our Pentagon and our State Department. I want to trust all of them. But right now, it's verify, then trust, not trust, but verify. I think we need verification on how things are going before anything else. We'll probably talk a little bit about that tomorrow. We'll definitely talk with Kursanau tomorrow as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you to Jonathan Broadbent, did a phenomenal job. Don't forget about our event. Go to voiceofgeauga.com. That's what Jonathan gave us to get your tickets to join us on Wednesday night for a great time in Geauga County. All of the information is there. It's a $25 ticket, prepay by scanning the code or clicking the link at voiceofgeauga.com. I'll be there. Skip Claypool, Jonathan, our friend Khalid Namar will be there speaking. Food trucks, games, raffles, all kinds of great stuff happening there. So I hope you'll join us on Wednesday night, starting at 6:30 in Geauga. So thank you to Jonathan for coming out to promote that, as well as, well, so much more that you heard. Don't forget, before you leave, hit that thumbs up button, hit that bell notification, and make sure you hit the join to join us on the locals community. Because I'm putting, it's our own kind of little mini Facebook. I'm putting my own videos up there and commentary and so on and so forth. It is, by the way, if you're an insider, the only place you'll be able to hear Ice Agent. All right. Before I drop it anywhere else, I might not even drop it anywhere else. I might keep it exclusive for the insiders. I'm really up in the air about where I want to go with that right now, but I promise you, the best information, that's the wrong word to say. First-hand information, first dibs on the best content that we do, plus personal experiences nobody else gets, come from being an unfiltered insider. Click the join button if you're watching on Rumble right now. Click the join button underneath the screen and join us. And if you would, please become a subscriber. It's $10 a month. What's that? 2 cups of coffee a month? You're going to have 30 cups of coffee if you buy them on the way to work. It's 2 days. All right. Seriously, it'll help a lot. It'll help me stay on the air and help keep this broadcast growing. And hopefully this podcast reaching the types of numbers that we wanted to reach so we can be more influential and impactful than we are now. And I feel like we're making a difference already. All right. So make sure you hit all of those things. Thanks, everybody. Be well, be safe, and stay free. We will see you tomorrow. Here's that link again while we're on the outro. Make sure you subscribe to Strictly Speaking This Week.